Okay, so the question here is, what do you know? And as Chris and I have just been talking about, what do you know about your clients? So, and if I said to you, so Russ has got a little poll running in the background. So if I asked you who your top clients were, what would you say? Would you say, I know exactly who they are? And then do you think you'd be right? Would you say, my best guess is? Or would you say, it's XYZ, I do loads of work for them? Okay, so that's interesting. Answers are coming in quickly. Okay, give it a few more seconds. Are we all done? Okay, so the majority say that they know exactly who their best clients are, and you think you're going to be right. There are a few that say my best guess is, and there's one or a couple, only 11%, that say actually, I know exactly, I do loads of work for them. So point behind this question is, how do you define your top clients? And reason for asking, I've worked with a marketing agency and they took on Aston Martin as a client. And they were really, really proud of this. And a bit like Chris mentioned before we were talking about taking on a client that's a kudos client. And this client was really a kudos client. They did loads and loads of work for them. But 5 months into the relationship, Aston Martin hadn't paid them a single penny. So this is not, to my mind, such a good client, because you're doing a load of work, but the client's not paying you very much. And that's not the point of this exercise. So define your top clients. Think about that one. So for this morning, what we're going to cover, we're going to have a look at tweaking your pricing and the impact that can have. We're also going to have a look at understanding the importance of your top relationships, be it with customers and suppliers, and the risk of reliance on a small number of either suppliers or customers. And then average customer spend and what would happen if you increase that. So all of these are food for thought. And then where you store your profit, which is a bit of a topical one for me at the moment. So some of you may have heard me mention this before. So positive impact on tweaking your pricing. So every year, as we all know, cost of living goes up. And we should be looking at our pricing to do regular incremental increases to reflect this. And if you increase your prices by 8%, 2% on a regular basis, even if it's annual, that doesn't come as such a big blow for your clients when you say, oh my Lord, I haven't increased my prices for 5 years, I'm going to put them up by 10%. Small increments, I won't say go unnoticed, but the point is it's easier to, it's more palatable. It's easier to digest if it just goes up a little bit at a time. And if in putting your prices up, you lose a client or 2 clients, what's the impact on your bottom line? So you're doing a bit less work, but the point is your prices have gone up, so you've got more coming in. So your profits are either improving or staying the same for a bit less work that you're doing. So this little exercise in really knowing your customers and understanding your pricing, just to push it up by a little bit, isn't always a bad thing. And people fear away and you think, oh no, I can't put my prices up, I'll lose clients. But they may be clients, as we've touched on, that you might want to lose, because if they're not profitable and you're not gaining from this relationship, then it's not such a good relationship for you to have. Russ, very quickly, I didn't look what time I started, so can you give me a few minutes warning, please?
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you. So it's something just to consider on pricing. So the next thing then is your top customers. It is really, really important to have an understanding, and a very clear understanding, of who your top customers are, who brings in the highest revenues, how much time are you spending on them, how profitable are they? Because then you work, and when you know that this is something that really works well, you look for similar customers in that same league. So you build on this process. And the customers that are bubbling along at the bottom, that are just sort of dripping in, well, those are the ones you don't really want to concentrate on finding too many of, because they're not going to fuel your fire efficiently or quickly enough. So understand your customers, know what you're looking for. And that's not just your niche, but really the types of people that you want to work with. I make it a bit of a rule. I need to like my clients. It's very important for me that I can build a good, solid relationship with them, and that we do become friends. I work with, and distance doesn't have an issue here, because one of my clients is in Spain at the moment. She got stuck out there before lockdown, hasn't been able to come back, and now she's in a point where she's had to become a Spanish resident. So who knows if she ever makes it back? It's going to be a while. And we have the most incredible relationship that we've built up on Zoom. So much so, I was talking to her the other day, the kids were in the background as they do, kids' pets, something making a noise. And she said to me, don't worry, she said, we're friends. And that's the sort of relationship that you need with your clients, because then they stick with you. So longevity is important. Also important to know about your suppliers and the risk of reliance on a few small suppliers. So if, for example, I'll use Carol as an example here, because hers is one good one I can think of. If Carol works with a particular printer and she's always using the same printer and always using the same printer, and tomorrow he's not there, or she for that matter, what's the impact on your business? So understand your suppliers, understand what percentage of your income you're spending with which suppliers, because those are the suppliers. If you're spending 50% of your income with a supplier, they should be treating you like gold dust. And you should be able to effectively tap into that relationship, but also have a contingency plan so that if for whatever reason they aren't there tomorrow, have a backup plan. Just keep an eye on what the market's doing, what the competition's doing. And then going on with that, so average spend per customer is another one. If you are working with a client that you can effectively upsell to, and if, for example, for Carol, if she's just dropping leaflets to 10 roads, and suddenly she can work with them and they want leaflets dropping to 20 roads, that's a much more effective and far more economical way to grow your business than finding new clients and spending a load on advertising. Part of this is also word of mouth. And if your average customer is spending a little bit more with you, again, your bottom line's going up that little bit more. So it's ways to improve your profitability without, I won't say without doing a load of legwork, because it could be a load of legwork, but just streamlining that process and getting more into your bank account effectively, which is what we all do this for. And then it's a question of where you choose to store your profit. So I've already mentioned profit first. I'm a very big believer in profit first. And one of the big messages that comes out of profit first, and I know Chris is ploughing his way through this one at the moment, is to really cap what you run your company on and decide that this is, Mike Mikhailovich reckons for your average company, 30%. So he says he works on a figure called your real revenue. And what your real revenue is, it's money coming into your bank as opposed to how much you've invoiced. You then take out of that any money that you owe in taxes. So if you're VAT registered, for example, money coming into your bank is going to contain some of your VAT. Take that out. You also take out anything that you've invoiced a client for, which is just direct cost effectively. So if, for example, and I'm picking on Carol here again, if Carol's bought a load of ink and she's directly invoiced her client for that ink as part of her invoice, you remove that because that's just giving you back money that you've laid out. And then the bit that's left is what Mike would refer to as your real revenue. And what he says is split that then into pots. So the first pot and the biggest pot goes to pay you as the business owner, so that you always know you have an income in this business. Another pot is for savings, another pot's for long-term savings. Fourth pot is for tax. And the last pot is what's left. And that's what you aim to run your business on. So you're very, very aware of what you choose to spend and effectively where you choose to store your profit. So a story you may have heard me mention before, I've got a client who had somebody doing their procurement and she was great. She always bought things when they were on special. But she bought a load of highlighters, boxes of 12 different coloured highlighters. And she's the only person who uses said highlighters, which is great. but the things go dry, don't they? And then you go to use the highlighters, and what do you do? They've gone dry, so you bin them. So you were storing your profit in your stationery cupboard. You've now popped it in the bin. Now where are you storing your profit? Can't recommend that approach. It is not a good storage place for your profit, guys. Keep it instead in the bank. So think about what you're buying. And Mike's view is that you go through your bank statements for an average of 3 months. You could do this online or physical bank statements, whichever your preference. And you highlight or you mark the expenses that are absolutely essential for your business. That if you didn't spend this, your business could not run. Then you look at the things that make the boat go faster. So this could be partly your marketing. And everything else, really question, do you need that? And if you decide you don't, decide to store your profits somewhere else and keep it in the bank. So that's the big message. So increase your profitability. There's little tweaks you can do. And the last message here is don't be this little dog. So this little dog's looking very sad. And you can't see in the picture, but he's sitting next to his owner, who's sitting rocking on a porch in the sunshine. And every now and again, the little dog gives a yelp. And a little boy on the pavement walking past says to the old man, he says, "Old man, why is your dog yelping?" And the old man says, "Well, because he's sitting on a nail." And the little boy says, "But why is he sitting on a nail? Why doesn't he move?" And the old man replies, "Because he's not in enough pain." So the point here is don't sit in pain. There are people out there that can help and support you. Tap into them. Use the relationships. Get the support that you need to move your business to that next level. And don't be the little dog sitting on a nail. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. And if anybody's got any questions, they can ask Chris.
Cheers, Sharon. I'll leave the accountancy stuff to you. I mean, the interesting thing is that brilliant presentation, by the way, and I love the dog story. One really interesting thing is that concept of profit first. In our world, we call it pay yourself first in the personal finance world, but similar sort of concept. Why are we doing it? Are we rewarding ourselves for the work that we're doing? But interestingly, how do you do that when you first start out? Because is it about applying those principles at the outset, or is it about just gradually evolving to that profit first model? What do you think?
So this almost leads on to another connection. So Ian and I are doing a webinar coming up, and we're looking at doing this now. We've pushed it back a month, and that was my fault, and we've gone back to June instead of May. But that's looking at what you need to do to get your business started effectively. And I'm sure Ian can add in some bits here on this. My thoughts are that when you start a business, it's very important that you do it right from the outset. Keep your books and records, understand your numbers, because then none of this comes as a surprise when you're down the road and you find, oops, I'm not profitable. So all of this kicks in, and Mike's suggestion, Mike in his book suggests caps. So and taps. So he says target allocated percentages. So to begin with, believe me, I've done it. I've spent the last year doing it. It's a real challenge to do that to begin with. But you set yourself a starting point and you work towards them. And each month, each quarter, you work towards these percentages. So you do come to a point where you get everything in the right pots and you are containing the overheads and your general expenses that you're running your business on.
And that's an important point. It's that incremental gain. Do you know what? I don't expect to put 30% in your profit pot immediately, but if you can work up to that, that's a key factor, isn't it? It's the, just start as you mean to go on, but incrementally. There's a really good book, not a business book. Sharon, we always do this. We always talk too much about books, but there's a really good book by a guy called Steve Peters. Dr. Steve Peters, called The Chimp Paradox. And he was the coach psychologist for the British cycling team when they were like the Olympic one and the Sky one after they were successful. And he talks about that incremental improvement, just focus on improving it by 0.5 or 1% each time and make sure that you're getting there. And the principle applies to everything, doesn't it? Any questions for Sharon? Oh, Phil's got the chimp. I knew Phil had had the chimp paradox. I knew Phil had had the chimp paradox. It is an amazing book, Phil, isn't it? Any questions for Sharon? No, you've stunned him into silence.
No, no questions, but thank you. Thank you. That was really interesting and food for thought. And, you know, it's got my cogs turning on just, you know, how we analyse our business. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of having a sort of incremental conversation with clients about fees as well. You know, how many of us are guilty of keeping fees the same? I know that I am every single year, when actually the costs of everything else in their life are going up. Do you find that, Sharon, with your clients?
It's so common, and people say, oh, we can't put our fees up. But the point is, if you don't put your fees up, it's like I said in the presentation, if you suddenly come to a point where you just can't manage and you're now having to put your fees up 10%, that's a far more painful, undigestible, unpalatable increase, rather than saying, okay, a couple of percent in increments. And it's all about doing these things in increments.
Yeah, that incremental gain. Well, that was brilliant. Thanks, Sharon. I really appreciate that.